Hello and welcome to my book corner. My name is Hannah and today I wanted to talk to you about all the books that I've read in May. Let's start with some stats first. I need my glasses for that. So in May, I have read 3,982 pages, over 15 books. That's more pages than in April, but slightly less books, which means my books were thicker. And I have also listened to 40.43 hours of audio. My average rating for May is 3.93 stars, which is very good, I think. I had 2 DNFs, books that I didn't finish. I had a 0 1-star rating. I had 1 2-star ratings. I had 4 3-star books. I have 5 4-star books, and I had 5 5-star books. That rarely happens. So I'm very happy with the books that I've read in May. I think I had a really good month. Some of the books were on my physical TBR. Some of the books I had checked out from the library. Some of them were on Kindle, and some of them I read via audio. Let's start with the lower rated books and the DNFs because they are in a way connected to each other. And let's start with Leigh Bardugo, Six of Crows. This is a duology. I have also here Crooked Kingdom, and both of these books were on my shelves for a while, and I heard so much about Six of Crows. I was like, I need to get on a wagon and I need to read them ASAP. So I decided to read both of them in May, and actually I gave this book 2 stars. I just found it boring. I didn't like the writing style. I just thought there was so much reminiscing and so much going back into the past. Like the characters were trying to remember or they were remembering things that happened in the past. And I didn't really get much out of this book. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't vibe with it. If it wasn't for Nina and Matthias's story, I think I would be rating this book 1 star. And I feel, in my opinion, this book is overhyped. And this is, I think, the second book of Leigh Bardugo that I tried to read. And I just don't like her writing style, so 2 stars for this one. Leading from Six of Crows, we have Crooked Kingdom, and I actually didn't finish this book. I just found it so boring. I didn't see it going in any better direction. I DNF'd this book after 4 chapters. I decided I am not going to waste my time and waste my eyesight on this book, and it went into a DNF shelf. So I just think Leigh Bardugo is not an author for me. I just don't get her writing. I just find it boring. I'm sorry. I know there's a lot of fans of Leigh Bardugo out there, but she's just not an author for me. That leads us to the second and the last DNF of the month, and it is The Paris Wife by Paula McLean. This was one of the books that I have on this shelf here behind me. These are the books that I don't fancy reading, and this book was picked up for me by the random number generator. I read about 100 pages of this book and I just didn't enjoy it. Back in the day, I used to read a lot of historical fiction, and this is a historical literary fiction. And I used to read a lot of that, and this is a book that I bought during that time when I used to read a lot of this type of books. But I think I outgrew it, or I just don't enjoy this type of books anymore. So I DNF'd it. There's so many books on my shelves that I think, I would enjoy way more than this one, and it's just not a book for me. I'm not saying it's a bad book, it's just not a book for me. Okay, so let's talk about my 3-star reads. I have 2 books that I rated 3 stars in May, and one of them is Dune by Frank Herbert. As you can see, it's a massive book, and I kind of had to push through it a little bit. I listened to this book part audio and part read my physical copy, and there were bits that were interesting in this book, and I feel like I wish it was talked a bit more about the things that were interesting to me. And I'm talking about steel swords and the way the Freemans reclaimed water from the bodies, etc., etc. So I found the technological, the sci-fi side of the book a very, very interesting, but the rest, it was too political, it was long, the writing felt old-fashioned. This, at the end of the day, is a book that came out in the 60s, and the writing style is as it was probably in those times. I don't know, I wasn't born in the 60s, but I just found it quite outdated. And I have to say, I didn't realize, I mean, I did see the additional writing at the back, and I think if you read this book, you should read the appendixes first. I didn't know about that. I think they will help to explain the politics and religion of Arrakis a little bit more, and you will get some base knowledge going into this book, but without it, you walk around in the dark a little bit. Also, I read this book because I wanted to watch the movie, and I don't like doing this in the order, movie first and book later. I always prefer to read the book first and then watch a movie. And I feel like if you watch a movie and read a book, they complement each other very well. And I think movie on its own would be hard to understand. And also with the book, it's a bit harder to understand. So when you watch a movie and read a book as well, it kind of, everything just starts making a little bit more sense. I found this book a little bit confusing and a little bit boring in places. Also, the audio version had some music playing in the background, and I found it irritating in places because I'm just not used to this format of an audiobook when you have the music and sound effects and etc., etc. So I found it irritating, and it takes a little bit to get used to that form of an audiobook. For me, there was a time when I wanted to DNF this book, but because I spent so much money on this copy, this book cost me 25 quid, because I couldn't get it in the library, I bought my own version. And because I spent so much money on this book, I didn't just want to DNF it and forget about it. So that was one of the reasons I pushed through with the book. I think what I did wrong is I was expecting way more from this book. I was expecting a little bit more action, and I basically didn't get it, and this book didn't satisfy my expectations. I feel like if you're looking for action, you definitely won't find it here, or not enough. But what you will find is a lot of musings about politics and religion and stuff like that. So if this is your sort of a book, I do recommend it. I did rate it 3 stars because I feel like there are bits that I really enjoyed, and for me 3 stars is, it was an okay book. So for me, it was an okay book. I will not be reaching for any more Dune books because, yeah, I don't think I vibe with Mr. Herbert. The next 3-star book is Killjoy, and this is the novella that came out with A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. I think this is the prequel to book 1, and as you can see, it's very short. I think it's about 140 pages, and in my opinion, it's very hard to write novellas because they are so short. For me, it was an okay book, 3 stars. It's kind of like the general rating the novellas get from me, unless they are very, very bad. Because I feel like in 140 pages or less than 200 pages, you can't really achieve what you can achieve with a 400, 500, or, you know, that sort of a bigger book. There's basically no room. But it tells us about how Pip got an idea about investigating the murder of her friend, And yeah, so it tells us all about it. It was a quick read. It was an interesting read. I think Holly Jackson reads really well, and definitely a language a young adult audience will understand and enjoy and appreciate. So 3 stars for that one. The next book that I gave 3 stars to, I actually read on my Kindle, and this is Archer's Voice. And this book had a potential for me to get 4 stars because I found it really interesting in the beginning, but as it progressed, it just became very predictable, and at the end I just gave it 3 stars, and I haven't got much to say about this book really. I think towards the end I actually started skipping pages because I got bored. Everything was just repetitive and boring. So I gave it 3 stars because I enjoyed most of that book, so it was okay. The next 3-star read for me, that was a library book which I don't have anymore because I had to return it. You will see it here. It's Legend Born. And why did I give it 3 stars? I actually can't remember a lot about this book. That's how much influence that book had on me. But I think it was about this girl, and she goes to school and she gets involved with this circle of people. This book is mainly and loosely based around the tale of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, but it also involves a lot of different magic systems like ground magic or earth magic, or I don't know how else you would call it. And there's a lot of hell monsters and demons, and I think I rated it 3 stars because it read really young, and also I felt I was getting confused by everything that was happening, and I just didn't vibe with that book. Also, the fact that it was written and read like for a very young audience, which I knew when I was going into that book, but I think just my expectations were higher than the book than what the book provided, and I think this is where I went wrong. And also hearing people hyping this book up so much, to me it's just not worth the hype. It was okay, but it wasn't anything special to me. Let's move on to my 4-star reads, and the first one is Regretting You by Colleen Hoover, and I read that on my Kindle, and I actually don't remember what this book was about. I gave it 4 stars, and reading my review from Goodreads, I said this book touched me and rang true on many different levels. I appreciated the happy ending, but let me see. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Now I remember what this story was about. So it was about this married couple, and they had a daughter, and I think he was a doctor, and there was a sister as well of this woman, and I think her name was Morgan. So she had a sister, and she was babysitting for the sister one day because her sister was going back to work after her maternity leave, and then she got called to the hospital that her husband is in the hospital, and in the hospital she bumps into her sister's partner as well. So then it comes out that they actually had an accident together. They were in a car together, and no one knew about it. So turns out they had an affair, and as you can imagine, there's a lot of drama, a lot of secrets coming out. You know, there's the little baby and everything, and I just really enjoyed this book. There's a lot about a relationship between Morgan, the mum, and her daughter. Her daughter, I think, is about 16 in a book, and I just enjoyed that book. I can't believe that I actually can't remember it. That's strange, but yeah, I enjoyed that book, and I gave it 4 stars. The next Kindle book is Wool by Hugh Howey, and that was a book that it was actually recommended to me by one of my work friends. And I was going to read a book, but Wool graphic novel was available on Kindle Unlimited, so I picked it up. I rarely read graphic novels, and I actually really enjoyed it. I don't think I picked them up enough, and they are so much fun to read. And it was good because I also watched the series Silo on Apple TV. So I kind of knew what is going to happen in that graphic novel because I've watched the series. But it was still fun to read that and look at the pictures and the drawings. And yeah, it was so much fun. I gave it 4 stars. Also, at the end of that graphic novel, there were original sketches that that were prepared for the book. So yeah, I really enjoyed looking at them because, as some of you might know, I do like drawing myself and I do a little bit of arts and crafts, so I always enjoy looking at other people's sketches. So 4 stars. The next 4-star read was a library book as well, The Ocean at the End of the Lane, and I really enjoyed it. This is about the man who comes to town, visits his old childhood town, and visits his childhood home and a home of his friend from when he was a boy, and he doesn't remember a lot what happened during that time. And sitting by the pond, a lot of these memories are coming back to him. This was such an enchanting story. At first, I felt like I was reading like a middle grade book, but you know, there's nothing wrong with it. It read like a kid's book, but I enjoyed it. This book was full of magic, but also horror. There was few scenes when I was like, oh, I think this book could definitely be enjoyed by kids and adults both, because you know, when you remember when we were kids, we used to imagine all sorts of things and play doll houses and make things out of carton boxes, etc., etc. So I think both adults and kids would enjoy this book, and this is what this book was about. It was about magic, it was about imagination, it was about childhood and all the things that come with childhood, like the adventures that the kids have and what they believe, and yeah, all that stuff. One thing I would say, please check the trigger warnings, because there are a few scenes in that book that might be triggering for some people. But overall, a great book, and I would highly recommend it to people. And yeah, a good strong 4 stars. The next book on my 4-star shelf is Artemis, and that's the book that I had from the library as well, which I don't have it anymore, so I can only show you a graphic. But it was about this girl, Jazz, that lived on the moon. We are talking about a city on the moon. People actually live on the moon in those kind of like bubbles, and she works as a porter, but she also is a smuggler, and she does quite a few illegal jobs for people. And during one of these jobs, things go wrong, and you know, there's all this drama that unfolds afterwards. And I really liked Jazz as the main character, because from the very first page, I thought she's a tough little cookie, and she made me laugh in places. She comes across as a very strong and very confident young woman, and yeah, she just gets involved in some dodgy stuff, and you know, when things go wrong, all hell breaks loose. But it was such a good book. I feel like people don't talk about this book enough, and it deserves a little bit more hype, in my opinion. And then we have Love Redesigned by Lauren Asher, and I was going back and forth, trying to decide how do I actually rate this book. It had a 5-star rating, then it went back to 4 stars, then it went back to 5 stars, and then back to 4 stars, and I ended up giving it 5 stars, because comparing to my other 5-star reads, I think it's a very, very strong 4 stars. As you can see, I've marked a few places, some interesting quotes, some good one-liners. This is basically enemies to lovers book, and it's a very fast-paced romance. The dual perspective. We have chapters from Julian, and we have chapters from Dahlia. So they both stay in this town, Lake Wisteria. And of course, if you've read Dreamland Millionaires series by Lauren Asher, you will obviously connect the dots. Lake Wisteria is where the action is happening. And what I really enjoyed is the fact that we bumped into some of the characters from Dreamland Millionaires as well in here, which I found really amusing and really entertaining. And it was such a fun read. I actually really enjoyed this book. Of course, it's not very realistic, because how many times do you meet billionaires in like small towns and whatnot? But so it's unrealistic, but who cares? This is a romance. So it's a very fun and enjoyable read. And also the main characters, Julian and Dahlia, I loved how they bounced off each other. They had such good banter. They made me laugh in many places. And I just really enjoyed this book. And I don't know if it's a 5-star book because the writing is just not there. It's just so hard. It was so hard for me to decide, because if I only go by vibes and the energy, I would give it 5 stars. But to be a 5-star book, the writing, I need some beautiful writing in the book, and it wasn't there. But if you're looking for a fun, quick read, I definitely recommend Love Redesigned. And now we have, last but not least, my 5-star reads. Dun, da, da, da. Let's start with Holly Jackson, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. This is a YA thriller/mystery book, and we follow this girl Pip, that she's still in school, but she's trying to solve a cold case that the police is not interested in anymore, and she teams up with the victim's brother, and they both try to solve the murder. It definitely, in the beginning, it read like a young adult book, but I soon come to realize it was so much fun. Like, it wasn't heavy. It was so full of twists and turns, and I really didn't see the end coming. And this is why I've given this book 5 stars. And also, I really enjoy reading the production logs. So every chapter, you will find transcripts and production logs, and these are transcripts of the interviews she does with the witnesses, and there's some, I think, newspaper clippings as well. So you might say it's kind of like a mixed media book, maybe. But yeah, it was a fun read. I highly recommend it. I have another 2 books in the series on my shelves. I'm hoping to pick them up very soon, but definitely give it a go if you're looking for a fast-paced and fun read. I really enjoyed that one. And then we have The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. And this is about Adeline, and Adeline is living in the 18th century, beginning of the 18th century, so it's like early 1700s, and her parents want her to get married, and on the day of the marriage, before she get married, she goes in the woods and she makes the deal with the devil. What happens is she becomes immortal, and she lives for over 300 years, and we follow her over that period of time, and it's a dual timeline. Sometimes we are in 2014, 15, 13, etc., and then we go back to her past, to what happened in the past over the centuries. The thing is, she is immortal, but no one can remember her. If you meet Adeline, and if you close your eyes, or you leave the room, or you close the doors, straight away you forget Adeline. So however many people she meets during her life, no one remembers her until one day she meets Henry. I think it's Henry or Harry or something like that. I'm not very good with names. And he remembers her. Plot twist. So they start seeing each other, and there is more to it, then I am willing to say, because obviously I don't want to spoil the book for you if you haven't read it, but this book was so beautifully written. It was so heartwarming and heart-wrenching as well, and it talks about dark and light and love and hate and sacrifice and hope for the future. It talks about all these things, and it's a really, really beautifully written book. If someone tells you this is a romance, this is not a romance. This is a love story. And this is a story that will stay with me forever. I know that. 5 stars. And then on a lighter note, we have Bill Bryson and The Road to Little Dribbling. And for me, Bill Bryson is someone that always makes me laugh. As you can see, I have few tabs marked. He usually writes travel books, and he mixes humor and jokes with interesting facts about different places and history of places. So I always find his books really entertaining. That I've read multiple of his books. I think we're going into like, I don't know, maybe 10 plus books I've read by Bill Bryson, and I always enjoy them. And if you are looking for an author to make you laugh, definitely give Bill Bryson a go, because he never disappoints me. So this book is specifically about his travels in England, and it's so nice. He goes in different regions of the UK, and he talks about different things that happen historically, and he tells you about them in a very, very funny way. I just love Bill Bryson. We have 2 more books left. One of them is the book that I had from the library, Dark Matter. This book was on my TBR my WTR, my want to read list for such a long time. And when I saw that Apple TV is doing a Dark Matter show series, I had to read the book first, because yes, I'm one of those people. So I ran to my library, managed to place a hold, managed to get the book, and I read it in literally a couple of days. It was so good. For me, I always enjoy a little bit of a sci-fi, a little bit of a thriller, and if you can connect and combine those two together, I always enjoy the books. And now watching the series, I can see what has been changed, what has been maybe added. I just loved that book. And if you like a little bit of a sci-fi and quantum physics, if you're a little bit geeky like this, and if you like fast-paced books, definitely give Dark Matter a go. You will not regret. 5 stars for me. The last book of May and the last 5-star read for me is Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. It was actually a library book, but I loved it so much that I ordered my own copy. And this is a story about love. This is a story about hope. And even though it's a little bit predictable, it's easy to guess what's gonna happen, I still really loved it, and the ending still made me feel emotional. I just think this book was so deep, and it was so nice to see the development of the character of Wallace. It was so good to see the development of Wallace in the book, in the story. We started with him being a little bit of a nasty person, and then he changed completely into someone else, given a second chance. I absolutely loved it, and I think everybody should read it. As always, please check the trigger warnings, because there might be a few subjects that are sensitive to certain people, so do check your trigger warnings, content warnings. But for me, it was a 5-star book, and it's so beautifully written as well. I just loved it. And I will be recommending it to people. I wish I have more books like that on my shelves. That's it. These are all the books I've read and listened to in May. Let me know in the comments whether you've read any of those books, what were your thoughts on them, or maybe if you have any recommendations, I always welcome them with open arms. As you probably noticed, I haven't posted my TBR for June, but that is because I'm taking part in the amazing readathon and I'm waiting for prompts to drop. But I am with Team Spooky and will be reading mostly mystery, thriller and horror. So these are the books I'm aiming to read in June. So there is no June TBR this month, but you will definitely see a June wrap up after all the amazing readathon is finished. I'm hoping to have read plenty of books, so I'll see you next month for that. Thank you very much for watching. If you've watched the entire video, please leave a book emoji in the comments, and again, let me know your book recommendations. Thanks again, and don't forget to like, comment and subscribe if you haven't already, because it really helps me out, and I'll see you next month. Bye!